Oh, shoot. I'm sort of ready.
It says it's live.
It does
So we
say
didn't have that mess up with the vertical whatever it was.
nope. We sure didn't.
Good morning, folks. Chuck just assured me that he was born ready, so here we go. Thanks for joining, everybody. Just an ad hoc Saturday morning show. We've been noodling around with the idea of moving back to Saturdays from Thursday night, or maybe even doing both, but we don't know yet. So this is kind of a little bit of a quick test run. Not much notice, so apologies in advance for that. But good morning, everybody.
Literally we decided after the day after our last show. I think we decided yesterday or late Thursday night, something like that. We've been talking, like Abe says, we've been talking about it for a long time.
Because Thursday's pretty crowded. We like doing a show, and technically don't mind doing both, but it's a lot. It is a lot of work. I mean, if we just sat around and BS or whatever, it would probably be pretty easy. But we generally try to.
What do you guys want? You guys just want a BS, or you want some ape information?
Yeah, putting.
I watched your video last night, man. That was pretty good. It's funny that most of the videos this time of year are, hey, Black Friday. This is what you can get on Black Friday. Guys just trying to make money selling shit, and it's like, I mean, I did a couple of videos that are product reviews, but I'm actually not getting anything out of them other than the product. I'm not getting any affiliate stuff. I don't usually do the affiliate stuff.
Well, it's tough, right? Because a lot of the stuff that we get offered to do as YouTubers, I turn down, right? Because it's hey, 45. Because it's not something that I would buy. If it's not something I would buy, I don't want to recommend it. And then once you go past that and you actually do the review, a lot of times during the review, something's wrong with the product. Then when you go back and you talk to the vendor and you tell them that, they get angry at you. And once you don't mention that and just do the video anyway.
I won't do that.
Yeah, so I generally say, hey, well, then I'm just not going to do the video. Or if I do it, then I'll say, hey, it had this particular problem. But then sometimes you find something that's great, right? And then
I'm like you. It's usually something I might want to use, or I'll investigate it before I even answer them and see if it looks like a good product. If it doesn't even look like a good product, I may not even answer, because sometimes it's really not a whole lot to do. It's maybe it might cover on the adventure side of my channel, which I don't get a whole lot of views for. But I'm not just out here to. I'm retired. I would just do this for fun. It's more than anything else. A little money in is nice to buy product stuff to build. When I build something.
Well, I like to do it as a hobby, right? To keep me somewhat entertained. And then the other one is that I learn stuff when I do videos, right? Which is selfish, but I like that. And I don't kind of want to pass it along. Morning, Hank. Hey, Jason 45, Dave, Jimmy, Jason, WOUQU. Good morning, boss. We got Ed up in there.
It's like 7:00 here, man.
He's there.
Early.
So well, I got to tell you, man, if we weren't streaming, I'd probably still be sleeping. I'd be snoring with my mouth open.
See, the 7:00 our time or 9:00 Central was actually really good for me because I'm usually awake anyhow. I've usually made my coffee by now, fed my dog. Me and the dog get up, and then she goes back to bed sometimes after she eats. So,
well, I got up. And then I went downstairs, took my pills, and then had a big bowl of instant ramen, not ramen, instant pho. And then I came up here and got everything ready.
Yeah, we're just kind of wasting a little time here to see if people catch on. Like we said, it's kind of short notice, and we haven't done this for a while. So,
all right, well,
we did the one with Colin, and that was the last one.
Yep, I remember that. I like that guy.
Yeah, Colin's smart. If you guys,
I've got another Brit I got to catch up with because I know we talked about coming on, and he said he would.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll get started. So we're talking a little bit about antenna tuners, and this is a little bit of a selfish thing for me because I'm doing a club presentation in January, and it's on antenna tuners, and so I just want to kind of run through everything and make sure that it's nice because when you get invited to do club presentations, at first it's like, why in the world do they want me to go on there and talk to them? And
it's because they know you already have slideshows, man.
Right. Well, the guy contacted me and goes, "Hey, is there any way you could do this presentation?"
Yeah.
And I could do that one, but I kind of, you progress and change. And it was about a year old video, and I said I'd put something together for him, and we'll see how it goes. And Johnny's already starting in on us, and he's right. It's a matching network, not a tuner. And then my perspective on the matching networks, and we'll get into it, is a little bit different than some of the narrative. Like I always have these 2 or 3 guys that come on and bellyache each time when I talk about tuners. So
well, since MFJ's out of the business now, I know Palstar makes really nice manual. I'm talking about manual tuners. There's a bunch of companies that make auto tuners, and some of them are. I mean, you can actually find some auto tuners that are do 1500. I will say, just before we get started, that if you're looking at old MFJ stuff, look it up and make sure, because their ratings were usually a little on the high side for what they actually were. They do make some that'll do 1500, but you got to make sure you find those. But besides Palstar, anybody else? You guys know of anybody else making manual tuners now that are decent?
I think that I won't be surprised if we see the Intellitron brand. So a lot of the stuff that MFJ was selling was made in China, and it was under a brand called Intellitron. And Gigaparts picked up a lot of that, like their power, like some of their power supplies and stuff like that.
HRA's selling stuff too.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something there. Yeah. And then Comet actually has some pretty good affordable antenna tuners out. I've never messed with one, so I don't know how well they work. But with MFJ going away, that manual tuner slice, they say that the 949s, the D, E, and F, were the most widely sold antenna tuners. I've actually got 2 of the 949Fs.
I've got one of theirs. It was made for their 811, the 4 tube one. 800 watts is supposedly good for it. I've never run more than 300 or 400 through it, but
well, I'll
tell you what, it tunes up really fast. It's a fast. I don't know why it would tune faster, but it does seem to make tune faster than my Palstar. It's not as smooth as my Palstar, but I use the Palstar is good for 1500. So not that I have it, but
like with the MFJs, they typically do the power ratings for single sideband. So if you're a digital person, you might want to consider that. Like my 949F is rated for 300 watts, but I wouldn't put that much. I only do about 150 through it digital. And look at this. We got Mr. Hollywood. Good morning, Hollywood. How you doing,
Hollywood?
And then we got this is the one that surprises me the most. I guess we've awakened the thumb. And,
the thumb's an hour ahead of me, but I think it depends on the time of year.
But I think he likes to sleep a little bit,
Oh yeah,
I know him pretty well. I think he likes that. And then Tim will saying I should be giving lectures at a university. Well, that's awful nice of you.
Yeah, that is nice.
Here we go. We got Paul and Gene. I think he's talking about comparing the car to Kiss. What's up, Andy? All right. Well, let's get started. And you may have seen this. You may have seen this diagram that I did before. But I put it together because I wanted to talk a little bit about SWR, and that's the whole reason why we use tuners, right? To get an impedance match. Impedance match are typically measured by hams with something like an SWR meter, but there's like some misconceptions and some confusion around SWR. So I felt that this chart gives a pretty good visual depiction about what's actually happening on your transmission line. And so when we transmit a signal from our radio to a load like an antenna, that signal is called the incident wave, and it's on the fundamental frequency that our radio is tuned to. And here the incident wave is depicted in that like sky blue color. And in this diagram, the incident wave's moving from left to right, from transmitter to load, and that's our transmitted signal. If we have an impedance mismatch, meaning that our 50 ohm characteristic transmission line is different than our antenna, we get a reflected wave, and that reflected wave here is depicted in red. You can see it's moving the opposite direction of the incident wave. We get a phenomenon called standing wave. So a lot of times, a ham will come along and be like, my SWRs are getting back into my radio, and I don't want to damage my radio, and my SWRs are getting back. And then you usually get some self-appointed grumpy person who claims to be an Elmer, and they'll say that, standing waves stand, they don't move, they don't come back. SWR does not come back into your radio or to your tuner or your amplifier or whatever. And technically they're correct. The standing wave does not come back, but the reflected wave does come back. So the standing wave is in white on this particular diagram. Now, this is what I call an optical conclusion, because it looks like that white one is moving, but it's not. It's just going up and down, up and down. Because the standing wave is the sum of your incident and your reflected wave. And they call that a node and an antinode when it's positive, antinode when it's negative. And it stays stationary, but it goes up and down and changes in amplitude. That's what's called your standing wave. And technically it doesn't go left to right and doesn't go right to left. It stays put, but the incident and reflective do. And our job with the antenna tuner is to get a best match that we can and minimize that reflective wave, and that would minimize our standing wave. Make sense? Yeah. I'm going to go with yes. What's up, Paul? Our buddy Prepan Paul's coming on the show in a few weeks. Talk about free DV. I shouldn't have said that.
Is that next week? Is that next
week? A week from Thursday.
Oh, okay. You said next week the other night, but I thought it was farther off.
Yeah, I seem to get my next week this week, and the other week I get all those mixed up sometimes. All right. Well, let me take that out of there, and then I'll put up some slides, and we'll talk a little bit about how antenna tuners really work and what they really do. So a lot of times people will say that the antenna tuner tunes your antenna directly, rather than changing the system impedance seen by the transmitter. So really think about your transmission line as a conduit that you're looking down. Right, so you have the 50 ohm transmission line, and at the end by your radio, if you were to look down that, what you would see is the impedance at the other end. Now your transmission line does do impedance transformation. It rotates the impedance on a Smith chart, and I don't have a copy of a Smith chart here, so I can't really show you that. But it's what your radio sees when it looks down that pipe. Now, a lot of people will argue that the antenna tuner actually does tune the antenna. What it does is it helps you tune the circuit that's comprised of your antenna system, which is your transmission line, the chokes or balance, and your antenna. But I am of the mindset that in order to tune an antenna, you have to physically manipulate the installation of that antenna. And that's either adjusting the height, maybe the angle, that maybe a sloper, you have it at a 30-degree angle and you move it to a 45-degree angle. That'll change your impedance. Or you change the length of your antenna or where the feed point is. That's tuning an antenna.
Well, it's like if you take your in-fed half wave, and it's supposed to be pretty much tuned, right? Pretty close. And if it's not, just take that thing and move it up and down at the bottom at the winder. If ours has a winder or the box, whatever it's in, and you'll see a little bit of a difference right there. And the same thing with a dipole. If you take the ends and move them in and out, it'll help a little bit too. So, and that's what Ape was talking about there by moving stuff, right?
Well, yeah, I had a a dipole that I changed from one mast to the other, and when I did that, it was like 27 feet high, and then when I moved it, it was like 32 feet high, and I had to retune it, right? And when I say retune it, I had to trim the antenna because my SWR changed. And I was running a tunerless environment. Now there's a guy, Walter Maxwell, really bright guy. He's not with us anymore. But he wrote a series of articles for QST magazine for the league, and he had 3 books, Reflections 1, 2, and 3. And in Reflections 3, he kind of had the eureka moment and said that the antenna tuner really does tune his antenna. Now, I kind of believe he was being a little bit tongue in cheek when he said that. But what happens is that when you talk about, antenna tuners really just fool your transmitter and keep it happy because it sees a matched load. Lots of people say, well, you haven't read Maxwell. I have. I read it. And a lot of people will say that, according to him, it does really tune your antenna. And I think it's like a conversation of nuance. And it's if you really consider your transmission line part of your antenna. I don't. I consider it the antenna system. When I buy transmission line, it says it's transmission line. It doesn't say it's antenna. So I just don't subscribe to that. But I believe all the concepts and constructs that everybody talks about are the same. It's just more of a lexicon or a language thing. And what's really interesting is an antenna is made up of reactive components. And we talk about reactive components, we talk about inductors, and we talk about capacitors. Variable generally, sometimes they're fixed, depends on the tuner. And the question really is that how does a reactive component create physical impedance, right? So if you think about impedance is resistance, like ohmic resistance, things lost to heat or to radiation, and reactance. Now, reactance is either capacitive or inductive, and then we use the components in the antenna tuner to cancel those out. They cancel those out by doing something called phase rotation. So with your nano VNA, if you take a look at your antenna's impedance, you can actually see the phase of the signal at your given frequency and use the tuner to manipulate that phase to cancel out that reactive and then get a purely resistive load. So that's how they work. Antenna tuners aren't a signal booster. Sometimes people say, you boost your signal or you tune for maximum noise. Really what you're doing is you're bringing that circuit into resonance. And what it does is it allows you to cleanly hear the signal that you want versus the signals that you don't. And that gives you a louder, cleaner, more fidelity in your signal, and you'll be able to hear that. The bigger the mismatch between your characteristic output of your radio, 50 ohms is ham radio operators, and your antenna, the bigger the delta is in that impedance, the more work or heavy lifting that your antenna tuner needs to do. And you can have loss in your tuner. Some tuners are more lossy than other ones. I think T networks are particularly lossy versus L networks, and we'll talk a little bit about those. What's up, Don? Good morning. See, what is Johnny's
here?
If you consider the antenna and coax as a system, then yes, it's a tuner. But if you're looking at both separate, then it's a matching network. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. There's an old joke in amateur radio that says that you can tune any antenna to 1-to-1 if you have a long enough piece of coaxial cable. And that's because you have loss, right? So you have loss on that fundamental frequency that's going out, your transmitted signal, and you have loss on the signal that comes back, your reflected wave. And if less of that signal comes back, then your SWR looks lower. So what your antenna tuner actually does is we talked about it, is an impedance adjustment. It allows you to remove the reactance, create that purely resistive load. With the goal that last bullet, the transmitter seeing 50 ohms. And the reason we want to see that 50 ohms is that we want to have a transfer of power from our generator or transmitter into the antenna itself, antenna system, because we're hams, we're greedy, and we want as much power going out on the wire as we want. So the goal is to get all of the power out of the transmitter versus a reflection back into it, right? So that way we get stronger signals. Hollywood's saying, he says it's semantics. I'm waking up over here, so cut me a break. It's semantics to say if the tuner tunes the load or not, and I agree 100%. What it does is it creating a match condition, allow effective power transfer. He says what it does is place the resistance in a conjugate phase, so when it reaches the load, it will make the load resonant and accept power. We're going to talk a little bit about conjugate matched networks and explain that in a little bit more detail. So when we talk about the tuner guts, there's a couple of different types of tuner networks that you'll see if you build or if you buy antenna tuners. And the first one I was going to talk about is an L network. And that's when you have either an inductor or capacitor in parallel with your antenna, going across the shield side and the center conductor. And then in series, you have a tuner or inductor, depending upon what you have in the first one. They're simple networks, they're efficient, and they're low loss when matched. So people like them. When you look at an automatic antenna tuner, it's typically an L network, and then it has a series of relays that allow you to manipulate which components are in series and which components are in parallel. So you really can get 4 different types of L networks out of those. And they typically are very wide banded, and they have a limited matching range and may not handle huge mismatches easily. But an example of one that really does works really well is the Xiegu G90 has a fantastic L network in it. Does a great job matching. Now, I think they advertise that as a 10-to-1, but I think it goes a little bit beyond that.
Now, is that the same one that's in the in their amps? I heard somebody said he was reviewing a new product, their new amp from Xiegu, but again, it doesn't have a tuner in it. And he says, well, I wasn't too impressed with the other one, but if it's the same as a G90, I don't know why he wouldn't be impressed, right?
Yeah, I really don't know. I've never really messed with the Xiegu amps. In fact, I've never messed with one. So, well, I'll take that back. I had a Xiegu amp. I think they were calling it the PA100, but it did not have a tuner, and it really wasn't that. I really wasn't that happy with it. I think I sent it to other Andy. I think I gave it to him, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm sure there's a reason he picked 1430, but I don't know what it is.
I guess there is. Well, he was going to go. He was going to go elk camping today. I mean, hunting today, but he chose to stay home for a little while. Thanks, Liberty.
There you go. And I think when he says elk hunting, I think he just means takes a little bottle of something out in the woods.
Well, I know the guys I know up where he lives that it's elk camping because they might do some hunting, but I think it's more get together.
Yeah. Don's saying he sees no reason to buy the Xiegu amp without the tuner. And
I don't know why they deleted it off the new one, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, they already had it. Why take it out? It's different, but it's not that much different.
Now people swear that the Xiegu amp is fantastic and it's the greatest thing in the world and all that. Mostly probably people with affiliate links will say that, but I'm not really the biggest fan of those tuners. So I was never really driven to buy one. I bought the Neptune, their 100-watt amp, and I really like that. There's no tuner in it. It's around $400. It's lightweight. It works really well. There you go. Ordering elk burgers from Costco. I didn't know Costco had those.
I didn't either.
I have to get up there.
Maybe only in Texas.
But what Xiegu did is they got really, really lucky with the G90. And the G90 is a really moderately priced radio. I mean, it's a very low priced radio when you think about it. And it has a lot of capabilities.
It has.
Yeah, but there are problems with the G90, right? Like the transistors that they use for their amplification stage is not the greatest in the world. But anyhow, it's a easy to use radio because it doesn't have a ton of features in it, and it works really well. And it's $450, and
right,
they did a great job with that, right? Putting something on the market for new hams or portable hams and 120 watts to get out there.
Starting point. I mean,
what's that?
20 watts is a decent low power area. I mean, I don't know why some of the other companies, you can do QRP with pretty much any radio, right?
Yeah, we just turned it down. Right?
All my ACs go down to 5 watts. That's as low as they go, but that's considered QRP. But why not offer like the 20? I know my buddy, Javi, he's like, if Yaesu or ICOM, either one came out with a 20-watt QR pre radio, he'd be all over it because he's not real happy with some of the other stuff. But I digress.
Well, yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think Zygu's ever released anything that's been as impressive as the G90. They're kind of, if it wasn't for the G90, I don't think they'd be taken as seriously as they are. Don, thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Much appreciated. Yeah, when Jim was here, he couldn't do Saturday shows. His I don't think I'm talking out of turn here. His daughter was she does competitive volleyball, and so Saturdays became a day where he was pretty tied up with that. So it's just something we weren't doing. But now the dynamics changed a little bit, and I think we'll probably do more Saturday stuff. And now whether we'll go full time Saturday or not, I don't think we've decided that yet.
Yeah.
But Saturday's nice. When we were doing Saturday and Sunday, man, that was brutal though.
That was terrible. At least Thursday broke it. The problem Thursdays, there's so many people that after we started streaming there, everybody else started streaming at the same time.
Right. There'd be multiple streams going on.
Exact same time. So
well, the other thing is
free.
The other thing is like Thursday nights is the night that you do everything, right? Like, oh, we got a happy hour planned for Thursday, or oh, we got this. We're going to go see the Christmas lights on Thursday, and it always became a big thing.
Right.
We got Jason Lockwood.
Oh, thanks, Jason.
Yeah, been a member for 3 months. Appreciate it. Glad to have you here. And then our buddy Prepan Paul gave away 5 memberships. He gave one to Sarah, and he gave one to KC9 RJF and 8 RWG. He gave one to Chris VE6 YEA, and then he gave one to J W9 JCR.
Nice.
So, and we actually have a supporters stream coming up on Wednesday, right?
Yeah. We're going to change that a little bit, but yeah. I was out of town last Wednesday, so for some business I had to take care of, so we couldn't do it last week. Right.
We moved it. And we typically
could if I would.
Like that first Wednesday of the month comes up pretty quick and catches us off-handed most of the time. I added it to the schedule, but we'll see what happens. So Pi networks are when you have 2 components in series along your center conductor, and then one in parallel that connects your center conductor to your shield or ground side. And Pi networks are typically what you would see in manual tuners. Very, very common in manual tuners, and they're very good and stable for known loads. They have more harmonic suppression. Like L networks generally will need filtering in them because they're not good at harmonic suppression, and you can really push a lot of power through a Pi network. So they're a little more complex. They have an extra component, 3 versus 2. That raises the price of Pi networks a little bit. But manual tuners are typically less expensive than automatic tuners. And I'm totally messing up. I'm talking about a T network when I talk about that topology. Pi networks are 2 components in parallel and 1 in series. And we typically use those in amplifier tuners. We'll typically use a Pi network. The T network is the one that we typically see in manual tuners. Because they have a wide matching range and they're flexible and they're really good for multi-band installations like 160 through 10 meters. T networks do have higher losses. They are less efficient. What I would recommend if you do go down the road of getting a manual tuner, what you can do is that you put your nano VNA going into your tuner instead of your radio, and then on the output side, just connect your antenna like you normally would. Get readings on your antenna for the various bands or frequencies you transmit on. And then just manipulate the controls, and you can watch on your nano VNA. You can see when you are tuned and when you're not tuned. And then mark those settings down, right? So that way it's easy for you to get back to those settings in the future. So you don't have to go through all the different settings as you move forward, and you'll learn how your antenna works. You'll learn how the tuner works with that antenna and does the matching, and you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, pretty quickly. It won't always be perfect, but it'll get you close.
Well, like if I take my LDG Pro 2 100 or Pro 102, I'm not sure the name, but I get if I use that and then I use my manual tuner, I get a better match on my manual tuner almost every single time, and I like that. I feel like I have more control with the manual tuner than I do.
And I'm talking for I use a doublet, so that's, I mean, it'll be close. My wire goes right through a tree, so I'm sure it changes it here and there. And Rain will change it on our doublet, so that's something.
Well, because the water gets on your ladder line or window line or whatever.
Yeah.
And what it does is it actually acts as a dielectric insulator, and that insulator is what changes the impedance of your transmission line. And then that's what changes the SWR when there's rain or snow or anything like that caked on there. Liberty says he had his all marked down, and then he moved his trailer to a different place, and it messed it all up again.
Yeah, I have mine written down too, and I need to redo it.
Oh, look at this, Don. Grouchy Don says that the 1000 Pro 2 was the worst tuner he ever bought, and then when he asked LGG about it, it was always his fault. Well, I believe the part about it being your fault, but I kind of like the LDG tuners. So I've got a couple of them floating around here.
I've got a couple of the little ones for 100 watters.
I have the
125.
I have the 100-watt one, and I'm really sorry that I bought it. And I did buy it on a recommendation from another ham, and nice guy. No, really nice guy, and I totally appreciate it. But it's a 100-watt single sideband, and so as a digital operator, it's less than that.
Oh.
And I want to say that it's like 35 watts digital or something. Now I run 85 watts digital through it when I use it. And I'm okay if I burn it up because I've got other tuners sitting around here. But if I didn't, I wouldn't. I don't think I would push that much power through it. So I was looking at like the LDG 600. It's supposed to be 600 watts. And that easily would cover 100 watts digital. But it's expensive, man. That's like $500 tuner. And I think it's a lot of money to spend on that.
Yeah, I bought my Palstar manual tuner way before they. I mean, they're way more expensive than I paid for it.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick to the manual.
I think until somebody comes out with that MFJ version, I mean, if they raise the prices, what are you going to do? Just not buy them, I guess, you know?
Well, what's crazy is that, so I do spend time on eBay looking at antenna tuners, manual tuners, and the MFJ ones, some of them have gotten super expensive. I guess it's more of a supply and demand or scarcity thing.
Right.
But you can still find a pretty decent tuner, relatively expensive on eBay. And there's still a lot of new stock out there that has never been used or never been opened or anything like that. Right. Hollywood's talking about, if you're interested in tuners, he recommends downloading and playing with SimSmith. It's a modeling program for tuner types. Yeah, I've done a couple, I think SimSmith tuners, and they actually changed the name of that with the last release to SimNEC because it incorporates the NEC engine and allows you to do a little bit of modeling too.
Is that a brand of tuner?
No, SimSmith is a it's like a Monogal, MMA, It's a modeling. It's a pretty steep learning curve on that side.
That's what I thought, but when you said that, I thought you were talking an actual tuner.
No. Let's see. So when we talk about resonance and what it means for an antenna, let's talk a little bit about that. So an antenna is resonant when its impedance is purely resistive. And that means that the reactance is X is 0. And voltage and current are in phase. So we talked a little bit about phase rotation with the reactive components in the tuner. Now, when you take a look at some antennas, like a vertical antenna, the purely resistive part of that is I want to say is around 30, 35 ohms, somewhere right around in there. So you use a tuner to get to your 50 ohm. At resonance, there's no reactive components. So when you look at the formula, and I talked a little bit about it, we use the letter Z to equal impedance. R is our physical resistance, our ohmic resistance, and then JO is the reactance. Why they use JO, I have no idea, but it's either positive or negative depending upon if it's inductive or capacitive. Resonance is at a particular frequency, and we're very close frequencies. So like an antenna that's resonant isn't going to be resonant on every frequency on every band. But you can use harmonically related frequencies to be close to resonance, but it's not exactly resonant. So when people sit there and say things like, well, I only operate resonant antennas, they're being an ass for a couple of reasons. One is that it's only resonant on one frequency, right? So you're only operating in one place. What they mean to say is they say I used antennas that are very well matched on one or multiple frequencies.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of that came out with the 705 because it didn't have any type of a tuner. So that was a YouTuber's thing. And then all of a sudden they all bought the new tuner when it came out. And
well, what's crazy is right when before the 705 came out, everybody was saying that they didn't like shack in a box radios because they were trying to do everything at once, and that doesn't have a tuner and that's a problem. Then 705 comes out, and then everybody all of a sudden only uses resonant antennas. And typically when they say that, what they mean is they're using end-fed half waves that do harmonically related stuff.
Right.
Don says, what is a good remote tuner for ladder line and standard coax fed tuners, not those single wire jobs?
I don't know I was looking at that, and then I missed the remote part of it. Who is it? Who makes the tuners? Those really nice tuners that DX Engineering sells.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, I think Chameleon has a pretty nice remote tuner that I was interested in buying at one point in time. And then I think MFJ had some, but I didn't. I never got one of those.
I think Don knows the one I'm talking about. So
you can go on Banggood or AliExpress and stuff like that, and you can see remote antenna tuners that are like the AT100, just with some, like, there was a ham that turned his Chinese AT100 into a remote tuner, and there's a couple different ways to do that. I like the idea of using a remote tuner, but I just really haven't investigated them enough or looked at them.
ACOM makes one, I think.
ACOM. LDG, I think, has one. Here we go. Don saying John Fortune, or Liberty Cave saying John Fortune. It's John Portune. But like I said, I don't have one.
So ACOM sells one. It's the 04AT remote antenna tuner, $1,500 though. So, and it's good for 1,500 watts.
Yeah, Tail Feather saying the comic CAT 300 manual tuner. I do like the looks of that thing.
The comment Cat 300. Yeah.
Yeah, they're being a little bit of an ass. This is our buddy Hamstick here. Maybe he's one of those guys that says he only uses resonant antennas tuners. And I'm not trying to name call or anything like that, but I think they do mean resonant enough. But and then I got the slide antenna guy is John Portune, not Fortune, Liberty Cave. And what else do we have in here?
Somebody said the Cat 300. That's not one for outside.
No, it's a shack tuner. Liberty Cave saying is Sim Smith and Linux 2 on a tablet, or would I have where I would have looked. I know that you can run it on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I don't know about a tablet. I'm sure you could figure it out, but I've never seen it run on like an Android tablet or an iPad. Let's see what we got here. Yep, I went on Preppy and Paul's channel, I guess about a month ago, and went through the first version of this presentation. At the Hamfest is a great place to look and see manual tuners. The challenge is a lot of times people open up tuners and they mod them and they do things to them. Where the other thing is they'll push a little too much juice through there, and you can get arcing like on your capacitors. And sometimes when that arc happens, you can get a short because like a little piece of hot metal might span the spacing between the rotor and the stator in your capacitor. So take a look at them as best you can, but manual tuners are relatively easy to repair. Sometimes the components or parts in them can be a little expensive, like if you need to buy a new inductor. But the capacitors generally can be found pretty cheap on eBay. Yeah, W6NBC. That's him done.
Matt Tuner makes an outside one also.
Yes.
Most of them are only 100 watts, though. That ain't enough for Don.
Yeah, Don likes to push the juice.
He usually runs about 3K.
So I have a slide on understanding impedance, and we talked about its resistance plus reactance. Impedance is the sum of the resistance of R and X, and there's the formula in the first bullet. Resistance dissipates. Resistance dissipates power as heat or radiation. So a lot of times, like you'll feel something that has resistance. If you touch it, it'll be hot, like a coil or a wire or a connector or something like that. And that's typically considered ohmic resistance. Like if you like have a capacitor, not a capacitor, you have a resistor and you feed power through it, you can feel it or see it getting hot. Reactance actually stores energy in a temporary space. It stores it and releases it, stores it and releases it. It creates a capacitive or magnetic or inductive fields. Reactance introduces a phase difference between your voltage and your current, and that disrupts your efficient power transfer, and it can also bring distortion into the equation. When you have mismatch. Oh, go ahead.
You said distortion. I was just repeating.
Mismatch consequences. When your reactance does not equal 0, the mismatch leads to reflective power requiring corrective matching via tuner or transformer. Let's think about doing a video on different transformer types. So you have people who call like a 49-to-1 a conventional transformer. If you tap it, they'll call it an auto transformer. And then you have something called a transmission line transformer, which is a little bit different. That's when your windings act as more of a transmission line than like a voltage or a current transformer. I was going to do a video explaining the difference, but I started putting it together before I went out for my surgery, and just haven't gotten back to it yet. And so I've got an MFJ 901B. Tom P saying he picked up an old MFJ 901 so he could have a manual tuner as a backup for his auto tuner. He tried it once on the Nano VNA, but he must have been doing it wrong. I tuned my rig, but nothing on the Nano. I'll try again. So you don't put your Nano in series with the circuit. So it's remove the radio, connect the Nano, tune it, and then connect the radio back in and see how it works.
Right. That's the same as a Rig Expert too.
Yeah, you could use a Rig Expert. But you would need some sort of SWR meter or antenna analyzer that provides its own power source. Like you couldn't do it if you connected like an MFJ SWR meter or something along those lines.
I used to when I first got my manual tuners, I used to practice just pick a frequency and then try to tune it on the meter.
Alrighty. So the role of reactance in the Smith chart. I should have put a picture of a Smith chart in here just so folks could see it. But Smith charts are really handy because they allow you to visualize your impedance and see if you're capacitive or inductive. They're really handy for tuning in your antenna because you can see how manipulating the components in your tuner actually impact the circuit and impact ultimately resonance. Rotating resonance tuners and adjust reactance by shifting the impedance point along the chart towards the center, and then do that by rotating that phase that we talked about. I said I was going to talk a little bit about conjugate matching. So when you get a match with your load and your characteristic impedance of your transmitter, if you went to the antenna side and unscrewed the coax and looked down there, what you would see is a mirror reflection of the impedance condition of your antenna. So what the conjugate match does is it creates a reflection of that. So your reflective wave, when it comes back into your transmitter, will then reflect back out. So the power itself isn't really lost when you have a high SWR condition and reflected power. It's just repeated back and forth along your transmission line until that power is ultimately gone. Now you lose a little bit of power via the ohmic resistance of your transmission line and just typical characteristic loss that you have as a result of the transmission line that you're using. That's one of the reasons why people like things like ladder line, right, or twin lead, because they're relatively lossless transmission lines. So it really doesn't matter so much as to what your SWR is, because all that power will eventually get radiated. And then I have a point in here really around, it's a good idea to start messing around with simulation tools like SimSmith or EasyNEC or Mamanagal, because it helps you when you do an antenna design or model to diagnose mismatches, understand reflections, which should ultimately drive your ability to set your tuner. So this is where it gets a little bit more technical. We talk about conjugate matching and phase rotation. And I said a conjugate match occurs when the tuner output impedance equals the complex conjugate of the antenna's impedance. That really just means a mirror reflection or the opposite condition. So when you look at a Smith chart and you plot your SWR, and which is ultimately your impedance, if you travel on the circle on the Smith chart that's in, anywhere on that circle has the same SWR value, but the composition of that reactance changes. And that's why that works. We talked about it correcting phase, which is off when you have reactance. The tuner will correct that phase, and you do that via the conjugate match, which maximizes power transfer. I think we talked about that, and so did folks in the chat. So I have local versus system match. This match exists at the tuner output, not at the antenna, meaning the upstream components like Feedline still may suffer loss. And I think we covered that as well. Hollywood saying that ATUs and matchboxes were called line stretchers by the OMs because that's what they do. They alter the electrical length of the transmission line. Makes sense to me.
So I saw this one from KV5R. If you guys want to watch, the guy's more, he builds amps more for CB, but he does ham stuff. I think he's a ham also, but what's the guy? Mr. Black, the BB, what is it? AP, who's the guy that makes the amps?
BBI.
He does BBI. He's up in Idaho. He does a real good thing on coax, on loss, because I mean these guys are running big power. And the dielectric is a huge part of what he was talking about. So check that guy out. He likes the 400. That it's not LMR 400. It's the RG 400. But then he also has a couple other ones that he goes. If you look at them on paper, they're not as good maybe as others, but in actual use, he says they are actually better because of the dielectric in them. So if you guys want an interesting video, go check that guy out.
So the dielectric impacts the ohmic resistance in your transmission line, but the heat itself is a result of that, not the cause of it.
Right.
Now, the more you heat something up, the more that you can impact something's behavior. So if something's already hot, it might make it worse than if it was cold. All right, standing waves at the feed line problem. So when you have a mismatch reflection, when the tuner's not in the shack. So when the tuner's not in the shack, you do have less of that reflective wave transferring on your transmission line, like we saw in the diagram earlier. When you have less of that, you can't, the sum and the difference, the sum of the standing wave and the sum of the transmitted wave and the reflective wave shrink in amplitude. So that would be that white wave that we were looking at earlier, gets smaller. And then you have less of those problems where you have reflective power hitting your tuner or your radio. And then you have less voltage on your transmission line, which lowers your overall heating. We have formation of standing waves. Forward and reflected waves interfere, creating voltage current peaks, which is your antinode, and then nulls, which are your nodes on the coax. I think I said those two things backwards earlier. We talked a little bit about tuner re-reflection. As a result of that conjugate match, the tuner re-reflects a backwards wave, sending energy forward again. And that's where we say we don't really lose that power. We only lose the stuff that is dissipated in the coax. But feedline loss still matters. So even though the transmitter sees a match, the repeated wave back and forth does increase dissipation loss. And there's a chart in the American Radio Relay handbook that would allow you to calculate, the frequency that you're using, the SWR condition, the type of coax, and then the amount of dissipation loss that you see there. Yeah, look, I got to agree with Liberty Cave. I don't like coffee. I haven't drank coffee in probably 10 years. I know some people love it, need to get it through their day. What I'm really after is the caffeine. I don't know why in the world anybody would drink a decaffeinated soda or a decaffeinated coffee. It seems like you're torturing yourself there, right? I don't know about you, but I'm a caffeine junkie, Chuck. There's no way that I would drink a decaffeinated drink.
Somebody wants to know if I'm doing, I do listen once in a while. It's fun to listen.
I got these. I was never going to show up, so never mind. But they are.
Yeah, they didn't show up at all.
Let's see if I can open it up, if I got any of them that are not green. Here's one in blue. But it's called Neuro, and it's an energy and focus mint. So not only does it make your breath smell fresh, I don't have an affiliate link for this, by the way, but it does have each one of these has about a cup of coffee worth of caffeine in it. And then it has some sort of focus herb in there. I don't know what it is, but I do like them, but I only take two. Like I'll take one like when I start work, and then I'll take one about an hour into my shift. And
John says you're in the matrix with that stuff.
Yeah. So Don saying that Miller Lite doesn't have caffeine. You're right. It doesn't have caffeine, but it has other medicinal properties. So
it's good for sore backs, right?
Yeah. Well, I messed up my back somehow, and I'm not exactly sure, but I did treat it with Miller Lite. I did that last night, so I had to make sure I set 2 alarms this morning to make sure I would get up.
Yeah, I set one too, so we haven't been doing this in a while. I was way awake early though, as usual.
Let's see what we got here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between manual and automatic tuners, and this is really like a holy war kind of thing. When I got in amateur radio, earlier I mentioned that hand that told me to buy the LDG 100, and we were talking about different antennas, and they recommended that I try 9-to-1, and I was really happy that I did because I love that 9-to-1, and that's what got me wanting to build antennas and test and getting nano VNAs and all that stuff. But when we get the reason I wanted an automatic antenna tuner is because I'm lazy and I just wanted one antenna that I could get multiple bands on without having to get out of my chair. And that worked out really, really well for me. The other thing is that it's intimidating. When you talk about getting a manual tuner, you're like, oh my gosh, I just got buttons. It's got knobs. It's got settings. There's things that I would have to do and know in order to be able to use this. But it's really not that difficult. Like once you sit down and say, hey, maybe I'll watch a couple videos on manual antenna tuners, set up that test station that I talked about with an nano VNA, and then play with it. And it's actually relatively simple. But I went with an automatic tuner because I was, scared. I didn't think that I would be able to tune a manual tuner. I thought it was too complex for me. And what I learned over time is how antennas work. I learned about impedance. I learned about Smith charts, and then I was easily able to tune antennas that were grossly mismatched with a manual tuner with no problem. Sarah saying Ape using an auto tuner, and look, I'm going to be honest here that I do have an auto tuner that I do use in the event that I'm operating portable. But when I operate portable, it's not really in the sense that a lot of people do. I do travel a little bit, so I'll take like my 705 an auto tuner, and an antenna and play around with that.
I think Sarah's calling you out, talking about
She is.
I mean, totally. I use the auto tuner I use is the one in my 710 for like the Poseidon. I'll use it for that. But other than that, all my house stuff is either tuned already or through a manual tuner. My buddy Gary taught me. He goes, "Don't trust things that might let go right in the middle of your 1,000 watts."
Yeah, so I
don't know.
If you're transmitting a lot of power through a manual tuner and you have component failure or software firmware failure with your manual tuner, you can have a problem. You can have a problem real quick. I have speed.
You mean
like
auto
manual
tuner?
tuning is slower. Yeah, I'm sorry. Speed manual tuners are slower, right?
I don't know if you dropped out for everybody, but you dropped out for me during that little speech there.
Oh, well, I don't remember what I was talking about, but I was really just reinforcing your point around an auto tuner. An auto tuner can fail when you're transmitting, and if you're transmitting a lot of power, that could be problematic. So generally speaking, I say steer clear of automatic tuners that aren't really good quality, because you invest a lot of money in your shack, and you don't want to buy a cheap component that could cause some kind of problem or damage for you. Manual tuning slower. It takes longer to do. Automatic tuners are fast, and a lot of times the auto tuner will have memory in it, so when you hit a certain frequency, it knows the settings that it needs to do. Manual tuners don't really require power. Some of them do to light up like LED lights and stuff like that. With my MFJ, it needs it to do averaging versus peak reading.
Well, it needs it to do peak, right? To hold the peak.
I thought it was hold the average.
I think it's hold the peak.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right on that. But automatic tuners do require power. Manual tuners are pretty durable. Automatic tuners have lots of smaller electronic components that can fail. They're also soldered onto a board, and you could have a problem with a solder joint or a component break or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ziggy left a big giant manual tuner on the roof of his car, got in his car and started driving. And he said it flinged off, hit the road and bounced around and all that stuff. It was fine. It still works. No problems. Cost per watt. Manual tuners are more cost efficient. They're significantly cheaper, and then they can usually handle a lot more power. So like my MFJ's got a wider matching range. It can do more power, and it costs less than my LDG auto tuner. So manual tuners reside in the shack. Automatic tuners support shack or feed point installations. The reason your manual tuner is in the shack is because you got to touch it. You have to manipulate it. Now there are some tuners that are manually controlled that can be remounted remotely, but that's a modification generally.
You have to run some servos or something, right? I mean, something to actually turn it. I take my manual tuner portable though. My MFJ stays in my trailer most of the time because that's what I use a lot of times.
Well, right here I've got a little teeny tiny. I think it does 10 watts. It might just be 5, but this is a really little manual tuner. I mean, that as small as smaller than a lot of auto tuners that you can just take out. You could use this portable, no problem.
Yeah,
and then somebody was talking about
with an amp.
Right, the 901.
So I was like, oh shoot, it's not getting good for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because so like if you have a G90, right, for example, 20 watt radio, really nice internal tuner, but then you put an amplifier after it, you need another tuner after your amplifier because you don't want that SWR coming into your amplifier and causing havoc. And I should say reflective wave because we already talked about SWR being stationary. Hollywood saying that auto tuner pricey, less power capability keeps you from learning. Great if you must change frequencies quickly. Manual, less costs per watt, easy to fix, teaches you impedance, solid as a tank. 100% Hollywood. And Don saying never tune into an amplifier. That's right. So you want that amplifier on the other side. I'm sorry, you want that tuner on the other side of your amplifier, in between your amplifier and antenna. So that's another cost sometimes folks don't consider when they buy an amplifier that is tunerless. Sarah takes her 710 portable. She says it's enough to carry. I imagine it is. Although 710 is pretty compact radio. I was surprised when
I love my
first saw it.
710. It's about the same size. It's just a hair smaller than the 7300. Pretty close.
See, I
Same
would
as
have
a
never
pretty much the
taken
same as a 991.
before I sold my 7300, I would have never considered taking it portable because I felt that it was too big and clunky. But the other one is all plugged into everything, and I wouldn't want to disconnect it every time I went somewhere.
Well, I just have a couple. I have the power lead, and my power lead is from my other radio. So when I take my 710, I undo the speaker because I have the extra speakers, so I can pack it, coax, and then I have an amp, the amp one, the one that goes to my amp. So
Don wants us to talk a little bit about latching relays. You want that, or you want me to do it?
I don't know that much. All I know is they latch to. You don't want. Well, what do you want? Non-latching for power.
So they have latching and non-latching. So a latching relay requires you to consistently apply power to it. So that's one thing that can fail. If your power disruption, it can unlatch, and then you have a mismatch condition. But a latching relay holds its setting until you unlatch. A non-latching relay only holds its setting under use. So latching relays obviously cost more, and it's a better option to have a latching relay on your tuner than an unlatched relay. I think we covered all this, and that takes us to the end of that. I don't know if there's any other questions. If I missed anything, I apologize.
Don, I sent you something you might be interested in.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was. Battery operated automatic tuners are often latching. That's right. Or even if you have 12 volt power going into it, they're typically latching. John says he took his 7300 on one trip. I'm not saying it's not doable. We got to put it in a big old box to protect it and all that stuff. It just seems like a lot of radio to be lugging around.
Yeah, usually one of I take my A57 quite a few times. And then my KX2 is super easy to take because it's pretty small.
Yeah, it's like a back pocket radio, right? You put that in your jeans pocket.
Yeah, the 705 is not too big. The difference with me and the 705 is in the KX2 is I get a tuner with it also because I bought mine with a tuner, which is usually a really good tuner. I'm having little problems with a couple bands though, and I was told by the owner or the guy that invented that radio says that it can't happen.
You know what? I'm a little bit of a dummy, and I saw communications and conversations, and I was wondering who the heck this is, and it's John. It's Crockett. Yeah. He told me he changed the name of his channel, and I totally drew a blank on it and forgot. And so, John, what's up, buddy?
I don't know what he's talking about. Do you?
Nope, no idea. I'm assuming it's some sort of something or other, but I have no idea what he means there. And KV5R. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. You might have been a few minutes late, but you are correct, sir.
Yep,
it is John. Look at that.
So we mentioned it Thursday, but Ape is working on our new store. We're trying to set this thing up better than we did last time, and we'll have our old product. We actually have stock, and I've told people before on my videos and stuff that contact me. If you hit me up a text, I have a lot of stock. We just don't have the store right now. And we're in the process of Ape is going to redo our instructions because Ape does a really good job with the instructions. The ones he wrote were much more clear for people. And
yes, we got to go through all that. And we also have to figure out what we have in stock and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then we have a bunch of new stuff coming out too. I think I showed some of this stuff the other night.
Well, we have like 10 different antennas.
Huh?
We have like 10 new antennas.
We're coming up with a something like this for the deltas, or the, you can do the V dipoles or a vertical out of it. There's other companies that sell stuff like this. That ours is going to be a little different.
Hold that back up, Chuck. Let's get another look at that.
It's got my logo on it right now, but it's got everything. This one's actually different. It fits my mast. My mast has a 1/2-inch bolt at the bottom. Most of ours are going to have 3/8. We're looking for a mast. I have a mast that works really well. It's only 22 feet, but for these type of antennas, most of the guys that are selling this stuff are only going like 4 or 5 feet in the air to start with. And I did test this the other day about 7 or 8 feet, and it was, I don't know what it was. I think the north-south was going really good, because I was going into LA. Guy said it was 20 over 100 watts into the Southern Cal. But
nice.
I'm going to show you. I think I put something on it. I don't have one that I could open. I've got one built with our.
Oh boy.
One of our bigger.
I tell him, Kathy. I tell him to get his butt organized, but he doesn't listen to me.
Well, no, she's talking about the stuff that gets shipped to me. I played. I'm playing with the Poseidon, or the Chronos. Actually, it's closer to the Chronos as far as the toroid in it. And I'm going to do a few things with that I think might work really well. I tried it with the dipole, and it works, except for 20. I had to shorten for some reason. Everything else worked fine with it all the way out. And those are 17 feet 8 inches, I think, is what those are.
Yeah, they're just over 17.
The alpha ones are 8 inches. I think 8 inches longer than the ones from the who's the other company? The guys up in Nevada. So if you're looking here's the lower part of the band, it's actually better.
Here's the 10 millimeter Chinese version, and this is 17. Yeah. I think it's 17.8 or 17 feet 8 inches. These aren't the. I mean, I don't know if you can hear that. These aren't exactly the most fitted precision antennas, but I got them relatively cheap. I want to say I got 2 for $35, so that's less than $20 a whip. But I've got like 3 or 4 of them because those might
work okay out. I mean, we can be, if that's what you have, it's not hard to change it to that. You just have to buy the right bolts and right couplers. These are what are these? I forget what they call these things. They're not joiners, but something like that. Couplers. I think they call these.
See, I just thought they called them nuts.
The one difference in ours is it actually has room inside it for a toroid. I mean, I got a 240 in it, and plenty of room. The first one I built was, what's that big one you have? The big toroid you have, Abe? It might have fit that one in there.
What, that 4-incher?
Yeah, I got my calculations off a little bit.
We're going to ban you, John. You keep talking crazy like that.
Yeah, you guys can use carbon fiber. I mean, I wish carbon fiber was better, because it would be lighter. But John, I did some testing not too long ago, and it wasn't. Just the signals weren't quite as good.
That's correct. Shortened antennas are always lower efficiency. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I was trying to keep the 20 longer. I had to come in like 2 sections, but that's I'm experimenting with something that's different. It's basically, that one would work good with just our regular 25 footer. I have to tell you guys, a 25 foot straight up stainless steel whip is.
It's a lot of material, right? You're trying to balance.
I got a little nervous because it was really windy the day I was doing it, and I think if you're going to do that, you need to use their. I was using what is it? Is it a 40 footer? What's the big one that Alpha makes?
It's 35 feet, I think. 32.
It has this, and I would say that you probably want to use that. And I was trying to use the lighter top sections also to keep it a little lighter at the top. But I was and I didn't have it all put together, so I was like a little leery of it. But it was pretty windy. But really, just the single thing, it leans over more than the wind. I think it leans over more than the wind actually moves it, to tell you the truth.
I think that the carbon fiber
slick in the wind
is really just a gimmick, to be honest with you.
Well, it's been around for a long time. Why isn't it being widely used by antenna
Right.
companies? I mean, there's got to be a reason.
Right. Right.
I wish it was, because it is a lot lighter, from what I understand.
It
You do,
is.
and with the V pattern, you guys will get like a bend. There's no, and if you use the old MFJ, I have an old MFJ one also. That thing will really bend. It's actually, I think those were 17 feet 8 inches also.
They are. I've got one around here somewhere.
They were longer than the other one.
You can use a piece of string, right? So if you have your two V's, you can connect them.
I showed, you could like put something, you could like on this thing here, if you really wanted to, you could put something in the top section, not as the, well, no, it's coupled though. If you insulate
Flip that
it,
around
maybe
so
you could
folks
put
can see the front of it. Look at that.
Yeah, one of my first, actually it's white. This one kind of gets you the nice. And then I got one going to Nebraska. Oh, that's
the one I like.
how he wanted it. And I got that one right. I got another one too. I got this one. But I started the top a little bit late. It should have been a couple more layers on it, but I'm new at that kind of stuff. Oh, this one's, no,
I got to figure out how to do that.
This one's open, but it's not. Well, it's not hard. And you have it's actually easy to do with the thing you have. And I have the 4 colors, but I don't use it.
AMS, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, it's wasteful. Like, that's not a wasteful. This won't be a wasteful print like this because it's the last layers.
Hey, James.
So only one change, but let me push this thing open. I put the long bolts of this thing the other night. Makes it hard to pull them out. Tolerance is a little tight there, which I like because it should last better. But like, there's the inside of one. This one. Let me put it the right way.
Let me put you on the big screen. Hold that thing up.
It'll set like that. So this is one we haven't really. This was the other version somebody bought. We bought these by mistake. These are like a 240. So that's what a 240. So if you wanted to do a 1-to-1 in their other ones, you can do that also.
Show that thumb screw that you got on there for the counterpoise.
Oh,
I like this.
Yeah. The only thing I notice about them, if you really want to, like, this one's probably good because they don't spin as fast. Not as much weight as a regular metal one.
Well, when they spin fast like that, the problem that I've got is if I'm out in the backyard and the lawn guy hasn't come over, it goes flinging, and then I'm done. It's game over.
Right.
Time, you know?
And this one's pretty much ready. I mean, I need a longer bolt. I calculated wrong there, but got a couple things I may change on them. The bolts for the section for the SO239, I can probably get by recessing it a little bit because it's a little long for our bolts that we had for that kind of stuff. Our bolts,
it's always
a
process, figuring out what works the best.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm only on 2 different designs, which is pretty good for this one.
Well, I think what that's going to do is wrap up our show. We're over a little bit here. I think Saturdays we typically go to about 11:15.
I will say that there's not a whole lot of, like, Sarah's in here, but there's not a whole lot of females in the ham radio community. But we are going to have a very young ham. She's new. She's got her own YouTube channel, and she'll be on somewhere on the first of the year, I think. She's a working person, so she didn't have the time. And our if we do Saturdays, that actually might help a little bit. On Saturdays, because she probably works Monday through Friday type stuff.
Well, we do have a lot of folks who are like, hey, I can't do Thursday night. That's my pinochle night or whatever.
So, and she's going to come into it about being a woman in predominantly a very young. I think she's only like maybe.
Well, we'll talk about what it's like to be in a hobby full of creepy old men, right?
Right, exactly. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Star Man. You rock too.
I actually miss the Saturdays, tell you the truth, and I forgot to tell my buddy Gary that we're streaming today.
Well, I got to tell you, I missed the Saturday, but at first I didn't, right? Because I got to sleep in, and I'm a lazy bones.
Right. Well, I'm up anyhow, so it doesn't really matter for me. But and if I'm doing stuff on Saturday, it's early enough for me that I still could do stuff.
Right. The later in the day it gets, the more difficult it makes it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to push the button. I want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks for finding us today. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we'll catch you next time. And I hit the button.
Later all.